All right, we're live on YouTube and ready to go.
Okay. Welcome, everyone. We appreciate your attendance at our planning and zoning meeting tonight. We're glad to have you here. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance by Henry and Hoyt, and then Eric Hansen will give our prayer.
Repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Heavenly Father, we are thankful for the chance we have to gather here tonight as citizens and city members. We are thankful, Father, for the many blessings in our lives. We are grateful for a beautiful area to call home, grateful for good citizens, and for the liberties and freedoms that we enjoy, a chance to meet as we do tonight. We pray that we might be mindful and wise as we discuss the matters that are here before us this evening, that we might take into account various viewpoints and look to understand and also make decisions that will be wise moving ahead for the benefit of the city and its citizens. We pray for the additional water that we need, and snow, especially in the mountains, to help us with this coming summer. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Eric. I forgot to excuse two of our commissioners, Jeff and Dwight, are gone tonight, so you're just stuck with the three of us. It's good. Okay. We do have an agenda. We need to adopt our agenda. So do I have a motion to adopt our agenda?
Motion to adopt the agenda is outlined.
Have a second?
Seconded.
Great. So Eric moved to adopt and Henry seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we don't have any minutes, right, Mary? All right, then we'll go to Spencer's for some follow-up.
Yes, so last night in city council, one ordinance, the Ingress Egress ordinance, was approved by the city council. So that one is through and is in as code. That was the for new subdivisions, one access point regulations. So hold on one second. I've got to get something figured out on the technical end here. It looks like I may have been signed out. Looks like I'm still okay. Alan, I don't know if you signed into the Zoom. I think we might be using the same Zoom login. Did you just sign into the Zoom meeting? Okay. Could you just make sure the YouTube's still running and let me know if it turns off? Okay. All right. We'll continue. And if the live stream dropped, we'll get it figured out.
Okay. Is that it for updates?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, thanks, Spencer. All right, we'll go right into our first agenda item, which is a public hearing to receive public input on a proposal to rezone parcel 040840000 for approximately 6.5 acres at approximately 600 east and 2200 north from residential estate 1 acre, RE1 to mixed residential 8, MR8. Let me read the rules of public hearing before we start.
I can give a brief overview first if you'd
First,
like,
okay,
and then you can read the rules right before we open it up. For
okay,
public
Spencer,
comment.
do that, please.
Okay, so we received an application for a rezone on this parcel that Nan just mentioned. I've got it circled here in my on the cursor on the screen. It includes the 6.5 acres. Currently, that land is zoned residential estate 1 acre lots, single family homes. The application was to rezone this from that residential estate 1 acre zone into what's our MR8 zone, which is mixed residential, 8 units per acre. And that would be a mix of multifamily and single family homes. That request right now under our current zoning density, that 1 acre zoning would allow for 6 homes under that density. The change of density would allow for 52 units, again, mixed with townhomes and single family homes is the application proposed. Just to give a little bit of history on this parcel, because there's been a lot of activity zoning wise relatively recently on this general area. One of those being the city center zone, which is just across the canal. That was established not too long ago. And the intent and idea with that city center zone, and it's shown in our maps in the general plan and in the code, is the boundary of that is this canal here. So that's why you see a lot of the higher densities just across the canal to the west. We don't have any of that density across to the east. Just some background. So this would be breaking from that plan they've established in that city center zoning. Also, just some recent history kind of precedent, and some of the planning commissioners may be involved in this. This parcel down here to the south was recently rezoned from the same 1 acre zoning. That one was applied to be rezoned several different times. And eventually going from the first application was the most dense and getting less and less dense along the way. 15,000 square foot lots, which is about a 1/3 acre, single family was the determination there on that parcel, which is pretty close. Just to give some context on this application. As far as a rezone goes, when we receive the application, we have to process it. We have to hold a public hearing. This is a legislative decision by the planning commission. So you're able to just weigh the options, weigh the pros and cons for the community and the city and the surrounding neighbors, and decide if you feel like this would be a benefit to that or not, and make your decision based on that. We're not limited just to what specific code says, because it's essentially changing the zoning plan. So just to give a little bit of background there. Yeah, that's the gist of it. The applicant did provide a rough site plan. One thing to note on this, it is very rough and preliminary. One thing to note on the site plan with it, this is just a general idea. A rezone wouldn't be tied to following this or not following this in any way. We would just be recommending the rezone itself, not this particular plan. But they put this together to give an idea of what it would look like. Single family homes on the outside and townhomes in the middle is how they've got it drawn. So.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, Spencer.
Mhm.
Okay, now I'll let you know the rules for public hearing. Before you begin, please state your name for the record. Please speak into the microphone, it's right up here, so that your comments can be recorded. Please limit your statements to 2 minutes. We'll time you. If you're also speaking on behalf of others, you may ask the chairman for more time. Please phrase your opinions in the form of statements, not questions. A public hearing is your opportunity to express your opinions to the Planning Commission. It is not a time to ask questions and expect dialogue between yourself and the commission or the city staff. Please address your comments to the commission, not to the public. The commission might ask questions about your comments in order for them to better understand you. If you have questions or need to discuss an issue, please meet with the Planning Commission members or the appropriate city staff member before the public hearing where dialogue can take place. You may provide a written statement as your input for a hearing. You may read your entire statement or summarize it. The 2-minute limit applies. You may provide a copy of a written statement to the city recorder. He will make copies for the commission. Written comments, if a copy is provided, become a part of the public record, but are not included in the minutes of the meeting. And we have copies of all of you that have sent emails to us. All right, so we will begin this public hearing. Yes. Do you want to come in here? Okay.
My name is Carlos Anderson. I live adjacent to this property. And I'm going to bring some stuff up that I'm sure you don't know about. I was in charge of Greenbelt irrigation when it was put in 2004, 2005. And I got some paperwork I'll share with you later. Doesn't need to be discussed here. That has been through before when they were trying to put the nursing home in. And they said, hey, wait a minute, we didn't like the cove that went in because it was not the way we would like to seen it. And we were told anything east of the Twin Canals would be single level family homes. Now they're trying to deviate again. And we went through similar situations just south of me. Single family homes, fine, have no problem. A couple things that I'll bring out so you're aware. And I'm speaking in behalf of Dave Rawlings, who's president of Greenbelt Irrigation, which I used to be. Greenbelt Irrigation requires 1/2 share of water per home. They only have 6.5 shares, which means depending on how many homes they go in, they're gonna have to buy some water. They'll get their water delivered through Greenbelt Irrigation. And each home requires a membership of $1,000 plus a $500 connection fee. So this is things you need to be aware of. There was a long story that went on with the previous owners. I have documents to show what they responded. When I was president, I tried to get them to let me put a 6-inch line around my house and all the way up through their property and back across 6th East to provide more water. And they stated it's of no benefit to us. The fellow that's running my property and that property right now, he irrigates my 3 acres in less than 24 hours. Takes him almost 7 days up there because it's coming out of a 4-inch line.
That's time.
That's fine.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Thank you.
My name is Kim Hawks, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak this evening. First of all, I express appreciation for the city making notice of this public hearing. My wife and I come tonight, not that we are against potential development on this property. We just do not feel that the MR8 zone is appropriate. And some of that has been stated because of the fact that it's east of the Twin Ditches, which consistently, as I've sat through city council meetings for 25 years, were expressed consistently the fact that the MR8 multi-residential zones were created for properties to the west of the Twin Ditches. We also wanted to comment on the fact that if this were to be rezoned in MR8, and I know that this diagram that was established or placed in the record, kind of showing a little bit about what it would possibly look like, by no means does it bind the developer to follow that diagram. So if it were to be changed to MR8, and they came before the city council with a concept plan, it could be drastically different, which would allow all permitted building within that zone could be used within that. So that is a big concern for us that we feel like really needs to be, we need to maintain this idea that single family lots are east of the Twin Ditches. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Michael Dunphy. I live on 1800 North. I'm speaking on behalf of myself and my wife, Jill Dunphy. Again, I'm not opposed to development, but I think we should follow existing zoning laws. I believe our planning department does a good job. I know there's infrastructure improvements that were made to the west, all the circles, that is good for accommodating higher density development. And I think by putting this development there, it's going to put an undue burden of traffic in certain areas that weren't planned for additional traffic. Additionally, I feel it will ruin the character of the neighborhood. Those are all single family homes there. And I also feel that to the best of my knowledge, the city is not out of areas for high density development. And really the only reason this is probably being considered is so the developer can make more money. Thank you.
Thank you.
Barbara Middleton. I'm not in favor of the development, mostly because of too many homes and too many little tiny homes in an area that was originally zoned for single residential type homes. And I think we ought to stick to those zoning codes. But the other issue, Carlos mentions irrigation water, but in the last 4 or 5 months, we've been consistently concerned and talking about culinary water and how many people we can pack into all these places and provide them with the culinary water that's needed. We had people at some of the different hearings that talked about not having enough water, culinary, and not having enough water pressure. So we're looking at another issue along with some of the other developments in the area where almost 140 homes are going up right over here. And now we have another one where we're trying to squeeze in more, more homes per acre. And I'm not sure we really solved the culinary water issue. And I think that's also very important. So sticking to the zoning perception, not perception, but the zoning ideas that originally were planned in this area, higher density development being west of the canal, as well as the water issues are of concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara.
Oh, masks. So my name is Kenny Reese. I live on 2100 North, just a couple blocks away from this development. So I built that house 12 years ago. I would say in the last 5 years, I think this is at least the 6th time that we've come to a planning and zoning commission meeting where a landowner and developer are proposing a zoning change. And so you'll probably get a common theme tonight that people are kind of growing tired of this constant barrage. When I built my house, like most of the neighbors that you'll hear from here, we did our homework. We looked at the zoning, the zoning in the surrounding areas. We looked at the city plan. And, you know, when I looked at it, I thought this is going to be a good place to live where I don't have to deal with some of the infrastructure burden and noise and things associated with the high density housing. So it is a little frustrating when, I don't know what other word to use, but greed kind of drives people to landowners and developers to try to maximize the number of people on their lot instead of looking at what's best for the surrounding community. But I would just encourage you, you know, the city plan exists, the current zoning exists. We can still keep the RE1. There's huge market out there still for 1 acre lots that would still provide a handsome profit to the landowner, the developer. It would fit in with the surrounding community better. There's RE1 already surrounding this area and R115 and R112. So it would fit in well there, but you know, the city plan exists. I would much rather see us stick to the city plan than do this piecemeal, disjointed rezoning for no real benefit other than maximizing the profit of the landowner. If I have any time left.
10 seconds.
Okay, well, that's good then. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reese. Anyone?
My name is Spencer Crook. I'm speaking on behalf of myself and my wife, Marie Crook. When we also I just want to say I agree with everything that's been stated. I just want to bring up one additional point. My wife and I also did our homework. We have children, so we live right across the street from Carlos, or just across the street from this property and barely to the south. And I have small children that walk to Greenville Elementary every day. And I'm concerned with the higher density housing that their safety at walking to school as well could be somewhat reduced, just due to the infrastructure and the way the place is, the way the planning has been built and the infrastructure this far. So I am also in favor of maintaining this zoning, or at least single family homes for that reason, in addition to those that have been stated already.
Thank you.
My name is Stephen Moore, live not too far from this development up 2160. Why are we here? Why are we here? We keep on doing the same thing and I just don't understand it. We were promised in the city center plan that the canal was going to be that boundary between high density and low density. That promise was made to us years ago.
Why are we here? Why are we here? I agree with everything that's been said since I came in, and forgive me for being a few minutes late, but it does not fit with the community. To plug in all those high density right in the middle of R1s does not make sense. Why is the planner even considering this? Why is he coming back to you and saying, hey, this is something we ought to consider? The planner should be talking to the developer and saying, no, let's get this right out of the gate. The new development that's going in on 6th East at around 20th North, we battled with that one. And it finally came in to where we're very comfortable and excited and looking forward to that community. And it will be an asset to North Logan. It will fit with the character of North Logan. And I don't know if you're aware, but there was some consideration years ago that the city of North Logan should be called Greenville. And when I moved to North Logan, that's what I saw was Greenville. I love the openness of this community, the trees, the larger lots, the more rural environment. But as soon as Four Seasons went in and the city center plan got developed, all of a sudden we start having this vision that we've got to have this huge mega, very urban space right here in North Logan. It just doesn't fit. We need to be respectful of Greenville. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Marcia Stewart, and I'm here on behalf of my husband, Tim Stewart, also. We're across the street from this area. My husband's family had this, have lived here in North Logan for many decades. And I just want to say that I follow up with what everyone else is saying, that this was zoned for R1, and that was what the community had been told it would be. And I think that it's good to keep those commitments to those of us who are neighbors. I also am concerned about the infrastructure and the impact on that, impact on the schools and the safety of the kids as we add more and more cars to this area where it is residential. And I also think that we need to be worried about kind of the boundary creep. If we say, well, we'll just add this one in, then what is the reason why you can't do it again? And I think we need to put a stop, that this is R1 and that we need to keep it in what the city plan was. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tim Tolbert. I live right at the north boundary across the street from this, 567 East, 2200 North. A lot of great points brought up by the community here. This is the second hearing I've attended regarding this specific particular property. I also would like to express my frustration with the fact that whoever owns this property continues to try to rezone like originally they tried to go to the nursing home, and now we're trying to do townhomes. They know what the zoning is. And the zoning that was allowed for the single family residential to the north of this went to R115, R112s. Those seem like pretty reasonable zoning if you're going to rezone. But I will say that I have a significant problem with traffic on this road, and not just traffic. The parking that comes out of the Cove development, they park in front of my house. They had to put signs all along, no parking along 2200 North to prevent people from parking there. And I still get parking in front of my house, across the street in front of my house. I don't know how that, if they went through with this particular plan, all of these people along 2200 North would have parking. Like that road would be swamped, and you'd have to widen 2200 North and allow an extra parking lane or something to that effect. So substantial infrastructure. Also, I am on septic. My neighbor's on well. We are still, I think that's a pretty significant issue as well. There's no sewage lines in there. They're gonna have to extend sewer, and all the other, that level of density could potentially contaminate well water as well. So I share a lot of concerns with a lot of other people here. Thanks.
Thank you.
Shane Summers. I'm from 1921 North, 600 East. Just speaking for myself, the last time I was at this meeting, it was Stop the Cove on the other side of the canal. And I'm a little concerned about the way the city is. A lot has happened since that meeting. Of course, Four Seasons, 1 in 7 residents of North Logan there. We're getting a ghetto, a renters area of North Logan, and then the rest of North Logan. And I don't know, just parks. I get the fact that the property on 1806th can't sell right now. There's a 100-year-old home. I get where money is involved, but the high density and the not high density, it's just an abrupt line, and I can understand the frustrations. I don't know about that, and I would like to take a straw poll. Do you care about owner occupied? Because it brings a different neighborhood. And even in R1 zoning, there's a non-owner occupied issue, and because of the university, and some of the renters are good, but they don't stay long. Thanks.
Thank you.
My name is Seth Tolbert. I'm a new member of the community, so I bought a home here just in the past year. And when moving here, we moved here for a reason, and we did our homework. And one of the pieces of homework we did is we looked at the community. We loved the spacing of the houses, the lot sizes, the views, everything drew us here. But the risks we looked at were water, growth plans. And one of the resources we went and did research with is looked at the city plan. And it gave me a sense of comfort to look at the zoning and look that there truly was a line drawn to say, there's going to be single family residential from here to the east. And the reality is, I feel like that was a promise. And I would appreciate if the community would actually honor that promise to new members of the community who moved here for a reason, using that city plan as essentially a rule book that we expect it to be followed. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Sarah Torgerson, and I live just east of in this neighborhood where the property is wanting to be put in. I just want to say I'm in opposition, and just like everyone else, I have all the same feelings and the frustrations of what's happening to our community with all these new developments being put in. And it's very quickly becoming a place that isn't very family friendly, and not really a community that, we purchased our houses in where we want to live. I have young children, and just like someone else said, the traffic is becoming so, it's just becoming insane. And I go walking in the morning when the kids go to school, and I'm constantly seeing issues because we don't have sidewalks in the adjacent areas. Kids don't have sidewalks to walk to school on. And when we're adding in these huge developments, it's just adding more traffic, and there's not safety precautions in place for the children. And we don't live in an area that's built to take this type of development. And so it doesn't make sense to go in at this place. And like everyone else has said, I think that we need to stick to the line of the canal and not go back on our promises. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
My name is Jimmy Moore. I live directly across the street here at 2156 North and 600 East. I agree with all of the comments that's been made here and the concern that all of my neighbors and friends have here. My concern is something that no one has spoke about, and that is when we have high and dense area like this and continue to populate areas, we got to be prepared for the crime that come with that. And so my concern is, living in this neighborhood, I want our neighborhood to stay safe. I want it to stay green. I want it to stay spacious. But I think when you bring in as many homes that we're looking at. I mean, because we don't know, unless we have a way of monitoring who move into the locations, is obviously we got to be prepared for some of the crime that accompanied as well. So that's my concern.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, we'll close our public hearing. And now the commission gets to talk about this. Commissioners?
Okay, if I can do two things, one of them, because I feel a little bad, sorry, Spencer, I feel bad for you a little bit right now. Correct me if I'm wrong. I guess just for the public, and as we go through and look at, and we will address the merits of this, but I guess just overall, I think understand that when a property owner says they want to rezone something, they will go and they will talk to folks in the city. Now, the folks in the city, such as Spencer and Alan, will make a recommendation. But my understanding is that if the property owner puts in the application, they have the right to their due diligence, which means it has to come to the planning commission. Okay.
Correct. Yep. So if they submit an application and pay the fee associated with that, we have to process that application and get it on an agenda, regardless of what our advice or recommendation to them was.
Okay. Thank you. So just, I guess, by way of, enlightenment and knowledge and all those sorts of things. Now, having said that, I live not too far away from this as well. I remember when the code came through, and I think there were some things that were different. As was mentioned, I think by one of the citizens, the notification process, we definitely appreciate that it lets the public know what's going on, that there's some proposed changes. And I think that's been an improvement made from what we've seen in the past there. As I went through the application, there were some statements on there that I felt were not quite accurate. I mean, one of the things that they said is that there were other, and I know that the cove is zoned more of a commercial or smaller. Everything else around there is zoned for larger land, use. And my feeling as I went through that experience with the cove is that to change this zoning, I guess in a nutshell, to me would be to perpetuate the mistakes that were made with the cove. I get, and I've heard this from the public, that we understand property owners have a right to develop, and those things will come, but it also needs to, there's not unilateral either on the property owner side or on the neighbor side. There's some give and take, and there's some say to be had, I think, by both. And in the end, you're trying to do something that works for the landowner, but also works for the community, which it needs to do. And so having said all that, to me, this is a huge change, does not make any sense. And I would definitely be against this. So those are my comments.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you. Dwight?
Spencer, for clarification again, what would be the smallest size of property in this proposed zoning change?
So the
Square
smallest,
feet.
the smallest square foot, it would be a townhome, in which case they're not on individual lots. It's just the actual unit in the building itself. So the minimum lot size isn't as applicable to this zone. Density wise, it would be 52 units as opposed to 6 with the current density. The R115 that's been brought up a couple times through different comments and was rezoned on a different property, that would mean there would be 16 lots on this. So it would go from 6 to 16 if it was rezoned R115, but currently it's RE1.
But 52 would be the maximum. if you
52 would be
will,
the
or-
maximum, yep, zoning
Potential,
density wise
yeah.
with this proposal.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Any other comments, Dwight, on that? Just,
I'm not in favor of the change. by
okay,
any means.
Aaron.
Pardon me. I have total agreement with some of the concerns that they brought up for colony water. If there's a well there and that kind of thing, and the character of the city, I don't like this. I just put this in my calculator. And you put 52 into, well, there's 43,560 feet per square. Or in an acre, square feet in an acre. And if you take 6 times that and then divide it, and you take all that big center out of there, the townhomes, you're getting it down to about 2,000 feet per square, 2,000 feet per building lot. We've got homes in North Logan that have more square feet in than that. So no, I'm not in favor of this at all. This is way too dense for what I got here when I was bought a home here, actually bought a lot and built home here. It was what we expected, single family homes, a beautiful area, and we want to keep that way. So no, I'm not in favor of it.
Thank you. I appreciate all of your comments and your thoughts, Eric, and I really appreciate everyone here and your comments. My concerns too are the same, I think, and you need to know that the commission always talks about water. That is a big, big concern in North Logan. So hopefully the public knows that. That's a concern for me. Traffic's a concern for me. Size of the lot's a concern for me, and the personality of our city. So I have to say I'm against it also. So are we ready to vote?
And just to be
Alright.
clear, this is a recommendation to the city council.
Yes, but we still have to vote on this, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so I need a motion for a recommendation to vote
Is there negative? or
a negative recommendation to the city council for rezoning on this parcel 04084004.
Aaron Hoyt, I so move that we decline this.
And do we have a second?
Second.
All right, Aaron made the motion and Dwight seconded it. All in favor of sending a negative recommendation to the city council?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that passes. Negative to the city council. Thank you, everyone. You can stay or you can go. We have a lot of fun if you want to stay.
Next public hearing.
Okay. Yes. Oh, okay.
If we could please take conversations just out into the hall so we can keep the meeting going, that would be
Yes.
great. Thank you.
That's okay. That's fine. But we have to continue on with our meeting too.
This is what I sent.
Okay.
This. See what I was writing.
Okay.
This was the response.
All right. We will.
Just whenever the company was broken into threes. They were on. They broke it into 3 new companies. They were merged.
Okay.
Their water line came through diagonal from the northeast corner into their property. They wouldn't give us. Go ahead. We're ready for our slide. So that's it.
Okay. Mr. Anderson, we really have to continue on our meeting.
I
Okay.
just want to make sure you're aware of that.
Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate your knowledge. Okay. All right. All right, we'll continue on with our second public hearing. Spencer, do you want to give us some input on this before we start?
Yes, and this is something the commission is very familiar with. This is an ordinance regarding water conservation plans for new subdivisions within North Logan City. So we have had a requirement to provide a water conservation plan for a very long time. This essentially outlines the requirements more in detail. And it varies based on if the property in question has irrigation water available or has historically had that water available, if it's located in an area that's served by secondary irrigation, or if it's going to be watered solely on culinary. Just an overview of this ordinance. If there is secondary water available on the property, this drastically reduces the burden on our city water system. And as such, they just need to provide details on that secondary system, and that would need to be installed with the subdivision. Again, this is only for new subdivisions. So that would need to be installed with the subdivision when it went in. If there's no irrigation water available, which historically would be primarily properties east of the upper canal, up on the bench, there are some limits that we have discussed at length, including maximum square footage of turf, estimate of total water use, and different water tier rates. And that would be approved with a landscape plan, a rough landscape plan at the subdivision level and with the building permit. And then those water tiers would be different. This, in essence, because of our water situation, is essentially allowing, finding a way to balance the property rights of people wanting to develop their property or build on that property with our water supply and demand. And so there are more restrictions on those lots, especially in areas that don't have secondary water, on what their landscaping can look like, on how much water can be used on their tiers. But that's essentially to provide a way that we don't just have to say no development in those areas. And as our infrastructure is improved, that we're actively working to solve with grants and different avenues, both our supply and storage, seeking to expand that. We're hoping that we'll get to a point with our water supply that we can ease these at some point in the future, but feel that it's necessary now for new development in the city. So.
Thank you, Spencer. Do I need to read these again?
No.
Okay. If anybody has a comment about this new regulation, we'd like to hear it now. No comments? Thank you. Oh, yes, a comment? Mr. Hawks?
I'm Kim Hawks. I can't sit there and not make a public statement because I think that water is such a critical resource. And I applaud the fact that we're moving towards really forcing people to be more accountable for the water they're using and looking for ways for us to maximize the resources that we have. I do know the cities had taken great steps to try to help provide culinary sources, but I think that we really need to really, this is a good move that I like us to be able to move towards, that really force people to be, and I hope that the ordinance, I haven't read it specifically line by line, but really that it has some teeth to really hold people accountable, that once they do develop, that they maintain the requirement that the ordinance is going to be placed there. That is always a challenge, is the enforcement of the ordinance. And it really begins with the development in the beginning, because that's going to really see whether people can legitimately do what the ordinance says. It's one thing to have it on paper and to say that it can be done. It's another thing to how do we enforce once people have put it in and then expect them to follow that.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Barbara Middleton. I think this is a great start. I love seeing this because I think it's so important, and we're probably going into our 6th or 7th year of drought again, unless we really get some snow. But I also want to emphasize the fact that we need the enforcement, and to make it easy to enforce and very clear, but also educate. There needs to be education coming from the city. We have a newsletter that goes out once a month. Where are we starting to look now at water conservation in our homes? We're not even using outside water yet, but we need to start in our homes. We have a newsletter, we have a web page, we have meetings. The library is working on programs. They're doing a gardening program. You know, we need to look at what the WaterWise principles are and how we can begin to educate people, because behavior is so darn hard to change. And we have to get into a different mode in how we use water. So I say we start now and not wait till we turn on the irrigation systems or we start on our lawns. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Anyone else? All right, we will close our public hearing. And commissioners?
Spencer, did we have an opportunity to talk with any of the title companies about, that was one of our issues, was initially a landowner buys a lot and then builds, and then second person comes in, whatever the case may be, and how can we help educate and inform the second generation owner of water restrictions, et cetera, and so forth?
Yeah, I wasn't able to speak with any title companies on that. I was able to speak with other staff members and the city engineer, who works a lot with the title of property and is familiar with those mechanisms. And we weren't able to find a clean way to pass that along via title. The most clear place we can have it noted is on the plat, the subdivision plat. And then, yeah, I tried a few different ways to figure out a good way to close the gap that's been brought up. Say if a home gets built, landscape doesn't get installed, somebody buys the home, then they come back and do the landscape after the building permit is issued. Say they don't know the landscape plan is there, they install a lot of landscape, and then with this ordinance, the water tier rates are different, and they get their first water bill and realize that their water restrictions if they weren't ever told that. So we'll want to have it noted in the plat. We don't have control over the CCNRs, but we'll recommend that it's noted in the CCNRs by the developer, and get it as many places as we can. So hopefully they will be able to see that. And then on a case-by-case basis, we'll have to work with landowners if that situation arises.
Great, thank you.
Great.
Spencer, another question. How do the HOAs establish their amount of greenery and water rights and usage, so forth?
Yeah, so-
Among their group.
Right. HOAs, the city has no part of. That's similar with CCNRs. We don't require HOAs. It's just up to the developer, development, or community to form those. So how they determine what their rules are is up to them, but they do have to follow the city code. So if an HOA came in a subdivision that had these requirements for only a certain amount of grass, and then they wanted to come in and make a rule that every home had to have, say, the entire front yard grass and the park strip grass, they couldn't do that if that was against city ordinances. But we would just stick with the city ordinances, not with what the HOA was enforcing.
Follow up too, and that is we cannot have that same kind of restriction in our city ordinances then.
As far as for existing homes or?
No, new developments.
For new developments, yes, we do have, this outlines that restriction as
okay.
far as percentages.
I guess the only thing additional I would add my 2 cents is that, again, this probably is not the end. It's the beginning of this, but I think it's a step in the right direction, and it is, water is becoming an increasingly rare and valuable commodity. And so, yeah, we want to be good stewards of it.
Oh,
And one more question to Spencer.
Yes.
Where are we going for sources for new culinary water? What's our sources?
Yeah, so we have a few different sources in the city, and they've looked at a bunch of different options through multiple different studies for both sources and reservoir locations. We have a combination of wells in different areas around Green Canyon is where most of our wells are. And then we do collect some surface water up Green Canyon as well. So we have a variety. We'd be looking at expanding that system with another water source, another well, and some more storage is the current plan. We don't have exact locations pinned down, but we do have several locations that could work right now. We'll get those finalized as we start to get funding lined up as well.
How long before that happens?
It's our number one priority. Actually, we had our mayor and city administrator and public works took a trip down to the legislature this morning to talk with the legislature concerning some funding possibly for that. So that's our number one priority. We're hoping that get in the ground and operational as soon as possible.
Great. I think we've talked a lot about this, and I appreciate the comments on enforcement and on education, because we've had those conversations here too. But I think it's a good start. And so I'm for recommending a positive recommendation to send this on. So are we ready for a vote? All right, I need a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that we make a positive recommendation for modifying the North Logan City Code Title 12 Land Use 12D-115 Development Regulations.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
So Dwight made the motion and Eric seconded it. All in favor? Aye. Okay, we'll send a positive recommendation on to the city council for that. Great, let's move on to our next item. Discussion about zoning for a veterinary hospital and education center within North Logan City and the city's city center zones.
I'm sorry, Nan. I wrote that and I
Thanks.
apologize.
Thanks,
Now that you
Spencer.
said it out loud, I'm sorry.
It was tricky, but I got it. I did it.
So
Can you tell us about this?
Yes, I'll give a little bit of overview, and then I can turn the time over to the applicant who'll be able to fill you in a little more on the details for their plan. What I want to do is give a little more history on the city center, which we actually discussed with the rezone earlier today. The city center zones, and let me just turn on the zoning here quickly so that we can take a look at it. This was developed relatively recently. It's been in place for a while now, and we've seen some development come in and changes from it, but there's still a lot of land left. So you can see the different zones here. This DT in pink is our downtown zone. CCC is city center commercial. CCA is city center adjacent. Adjacent is more of a residential zone. City center commercial is more commercial. And essentially the master plan is to have some downtown city center area with a town square park in there, boundary line at the canal like has been discussed. Part of that zoning, I mean, there's a range of things you can do, but a lot of it's less dense or less impactful on the outsides and gets more dense kind of packed towards the middle as far as commercial uses and activity goes into the downtown zones. With that, we had this outside edge, and I'll spend most of my time looking at one site. There are a couple different sites for this particular use that they wanted to discuss. This edge was slated for mixed residential housing, which had some townhomes and single family. That was developed and kind of determined that that wasn't really the best buffer. So this SF6 zone was created, which is small single family lots, 6,000, and that would create a little bit better buffer for the neighborhoods to the east across the canal. And so that's what that has been zoned as. We've been approached by New Vision Veterinary. I got that right? Okay. I don't have it in front of me. I was trying to hopefully get it right from my memory. Looking to do something along the lines of a veterinary hospital, but something that's unique in the sense that it's partnered with Utah State and is an opportunity for students in the program there to come and have hands-on experience, kind of a teaching working hospital with a little more partnership. Because of that, they're looking at, and that partnership with Utah State, looking at parcels owned by Utah State. And one of their parcels they're looking at is right here in our city center zones, SF6 area owned by Utah State. They approached us. We sat down with myself, Alan, and the mayor, Lindsay Peterson, and we discussed options. Now, the SF6 zone doesn't allow for veterinary hospitals. And so basically the feedback was, let's take a discussion item. So this is just a discussion. It's not a public hearing. There's no action that can be taken tonight. But let's bring this in front of the Planning Commission and maybe city council as well, and just get a feeling on temperature check, on a rezone to accommodate that type of use in this area, either by changing the zoning requirements in the matrix and allow for veterinary hospitals, or changing the zone, rezoning to a different zone. City center commercial would still have our design requirements, form-based code, but would allow this use, for example. Now, the reasons, and I'll outline just a few reasons why our city center could accommodate this, and things you'd also want to look out for. And then I'll turn it over to them to explain kind of their operation and vision. The city center, the idea really is to provide a sense of place that ties to North Logan City. Really a way to show that North Logan City is its own city, its own community, have a town square, have a place that people recognize as the city's, and kind of build that community there. So because of that, in certain areas, in the right areas, we do want to bring people in. We do want to have uses there that are different and unique, and bring people and energy to that. A partnership with Utah State, obviously Utah State with the Innovation Campus has played a big role in North Logan. Both a lot of our residents work there, and they've been a key and fast growing area of our city, as Eric is well aware of how fast that's growing. So this would bring a lot of that life and vibrancy to the city center. It is zoned single family. You have single family development here, the Cove here, single family across the canal. You have a senior community here, single family here. So it would be important to make sure, if it was changed zoning wise, that there would not be an impact either with traffic or noise or what have you to surrounding neighbors. I think that would be a strong focus. And in talking with applicants, that's something that they wouldn't want that either. And they really are impressed and really like that city center kind of idea and plan. It was, as they learn more about it, an exciting thing for them. So I think this site stands out in that it's a place they would want to be, with the town square park nearby, with people, bringing Utah State into really the identity of North Logan City. So that's kind of how the zoning plays a role with it. And kind of the purpose, again, keep in mind, is just discussion point, temperature check on if we would be interested in changing the zoning plan to allow for this type of use. So with that, and I have some of the information you've sent over, so I can pull over whatever you want to look at. I can pull out the site plan or building plans or whatever we'd want right at first.
May I ask a question, Spencer?
Yes.
How many acres are we looking at there?
Yes, click on that. That's all right. I measured it out. Doesn't show up with the Utah State land here, but I will quickly do a takeoff.
So yes, my name's Dr. Cody Ferber, and I represent the New Vision Veterinary Group. It's actually a nonprofit that we started 2 years ago with kind of a main purpose of really trying to make a difference in our industry as veterinarians. You'll see kind of in the pamphlet there, and then some of the things that Spencer's got here for us digitally. The right side of your packet just has kind of a little description of our vision and mission. What we're really trying to do is create a campus type environment where students can come live in the property and actually then participate in more hands-on type training in our veterinary facility. So it's a little bit different, if you will. We're trying to solve a few issues that we find in our industry. We really want to partner with the university, obviously, in the last few weeks with the announcement of the new vet school and attracting, upwards of maybe 320 professionals to our university into this area. We would like to be a space where they could live and have jobs, work, and then also receive a lot of their applied and hands-on training. The model that the university really wants to use is a distributive model. And so we would love to create a space that's designed to teach students a little slower pace, bigger rooms, bigger surgery suites, things like that, classroom type situations that when they're not at the university, and again, this is separate from the proposal that's at the legislature for the university, but when they're not there, we'd love them to be here participating with things. So as we drafted our nonprofit, one of the big pieces is we wanted to integrate as many levels of education as we could in our facility. So we've partnered with high school ag programs. We've partnered with Bridgerland Technical College with Susan Curtis there. She's actually on our board of directors, and she is directly over the vet tech program. Then we're also looking at the pre-vet group that also would love to have space and places to learn. And then obviously with the vet students would be one of our priorities, is to have a space where they could, as they got accepted into vet school, could have a place to live, work, and get experience. One of the other big pieces that we've done is we've partnered with Cache County and the Sheriff's Department there, and they are building an 11,000 square foot building down by the jail that we are going to manage for the entire county as far as shelter and intake medicine. And after a pet is determined to be abandoned, it'll actually be surrendered to us, and we would love to bring those up and adopt them out of this facility. So some of the things you'll see in the plans, it talks about a shelter adoption center. There's a space for maybe an emergency type clinic, and then a normal vet clinic. Again, slower volume, more focused on those students. So not your typical veterinary clinic. It really is a campus type situation where there's teaching and education going on. Kind of what Spencer has here, this is a really basic, the things you're seeing are the attempts of my architect and myself just kind of brainstorming, what does this look like? So they're very, very in their rudimentary stages, if you will. But you can see kind of the space for the vet side of things. Then the middle part, at some stage, we'd love to even have some specialty type medicine that's practiced there with specialty doctors. And then on this far side is more of that adoption area that is in connection with the county facility. Upstairs, this is a second level. This is an area where we envision the students congregating, studying, working together, various classrooms and office settings. And then when an experience or an opportunity comes along, they can go downstairs and see what they're studying upstairs in basic anatomy class. They go down and actually see it happening downstairs. So kind of a student center and a place for them to just congregate and enjoy. As Spencer mentioned to us about the city center, we really got excited because one of the pieces we wanted for our campus was a space and a place for the people that are here, the students here, to go and get a sandwich, go, take a break from maybe their all-night episode at the emergency clinic, and to be that close to your city center just was beyond our wildest dreams. We were trying to figure out how we could create that on our piece of ground on our own, and realized this would be a perfect location because it's right across the street. Magnitude, there are people all over the country, as I've contacted folks with shelter medicine and backgrounds that way, vet school, Washington State, some individuals in Louisiana that are really looking at this whole project, because there's nothing like this in the country. There's nothing that involves a nonprofit, a university, an applied technology college, the entire county as far as shelter medicine, adoption, and then trickling clear down into the high schools. So this is unique. There's people looking at us, really seeing how this comes together and how they can take it to their respective industries and locations. So I really anticipate we'll have people flying in, touring facilities, fundraisers, all of those kinds of things taking place in that city center. And this location just seems like the perfect spot for us. So maybe Spencer to the site plan.
Yep.
Does
I'll
that
pull
sound
that
good?
up. Yep.
So that last piece in your packet there was just, again, our architect doing some real rough outlines on that piece of ground. So right now the university owns 7.6 acres, I think, of the main part of what we've got drawn here. This very south portion, that's this part, and then the dog park is actually owned by Rocky Mountain Power. Our hope is that we could acquire that ground. I've spoken with them these last couple of weeks. And they have maybe identified, and maybe I'm spilling the beans here today, but they've identified a couple of places that would be more appropriate for their substation. And they're pushing that. So there's a possibility, if all the stars align, we could acquire that ground, merge it with the 7.6 acres that we're very heavily involved with the university to purchase and take and create this. So we've got just some ideas of some housing, some concepts there. We would love to see us be able to house probably 50 units on here if we could, depending. Again, it's west of the canal, so maybe that sounds good after listening to the last group. We wouldn't be against doing the SR6 that it's already zoned for as buffer too, if we felt like that was needed. I could almost see some of our professors, people at the university, in particular our doctors that are involved at this particular site, needing housing and residency. So some more separated housing would be possible too, but we would love to accommodate just as many students, particularly those vet students that a lot of them are coming in from out of state, provide a space for them and not have to worry about what do I do when I come to Logan and become part of the vet school. So that's the drawing, again, really rudimentary. This is our building here. We wanted some open space that connected to city center. The dog park concept was something that we thought that would be wonderful for the community and then for our little space there. And then tried to connect some of the normal traffic patterns there. Tonight, we were gracious enough to have Dean Ken White from the university, and then also Val Potter, who's the the assistant to the vice president from the university, all loving the concept and would love to see this move through. But outside of that, we just are excited to even just have the possibility. We realize that the zoning would need to change a little bit. But I think with the vision that you have with City Center, with the vision we have of creating this campus and space where people can live right there, a lot of the other pieces of ground we've looked at won't accommodate the vet teaching hospital and housing together. And we'd really love to see that happen. Questions? What can I address for you?
So I guess the first thing that comes to mind is I hear it and I go, okay, the clinic itself and that concept that, is certainly intriguing. As you've heard from previous agenda items, I think one of the things that citizens are going to be sensitive to is the number of living units and that density that's there. As I'm looking at this, I see student housing, student admin housing, student housing, housing. 4 of the 5 blocks seem to be housing.
Yeah.
Help me, I guess, understand, first off, what is it that drives having so much housing there?
Well, we're hoping to have an impact on 100, 150 students. I don't know for sure. We haven't really gotten into the nuts and bolts of the density or type of housing to any number. I don't know if, Spencer, were you able to calculate a number of if it stayed SR6 units versus something a little more dense like a townhome or a 2-bedroom townhome?
Right. And it as is, it's SF6. I think with that Rocky Mountain, correct me if I'm wrong, with that Rocky Mountain Power parcel, that would bring it up to about 9 acres. Is that sounding right?
I think it's a little more. I think it might be 10.
Okay,
Closer
about
to 10.
10. Okay, so I ran the numbers just quickly on 9 with that addition. If it was just developed as SF6, that's the same as this development just to the north here. Their maximum allowed density would be 65 lots, just single family. Those would just be spread out as single family homes. So if the proposal shown on that site plan has a veterinary hospital and then about 50 units on the outside, you're actually having less density overall housing. And then you've got whatever traffic and activity comes from the veterinary hospital. But that just helps give you an idea of what it would be if tomorrow somebody came in an application zoning as is, 65 units.
And I think that matches up to the rough numbers we were looking at. But again, we wouldn't be opposed to doing a mixture of things too, if it makes sense.
putting the more dense things in the middle if we needed to. But we really want to design something that's friendly, pet friendly, people friendly. It's more of a providing a service for those students is driving the numbers, not necessarily trying to make a dollar per se. So
Do you know with that Rocky Mountain parcel, sorry, again, we're delving maybe into that, but progression wise, how certain that may or may not be in this project?
that's a good question. I spoke to the representative there today, and she said she had 6 kind of lots or places identified. And her first 2, she's somewhat confident they may go through. Their private owners with those. 5 and 6 were university property. So yeah, they have a similar process. And in my opinion, that could be a icing on the cake, if you will, if we just even had to move through with the 7.6 and then let that come over time, because she said it's quite an involved process to even consider that ground. It has to go up for public bid, things like that. So again, just one of those things that if the stars align, we'd love to make that part of it, because then it spreads things out a little bit for us. Yes.
A couple of questions. Number one, how close are we to getting a veterinary school at Utah State?
The one person that could answer that question is right there.
Pretty close.
Pretty close. Is about,
It's going through the legislature right now. So. Votes. So it's been really, really well received. I can't say for sure.
okay, second question. How many square feet is in the building itself? The clinic and the main building?
It's right around 20,000 square feet. It is 2 levels.
Okay.
So, and these are very rough design too. There's a lot that still needs to happen with this, but roughly that.
I think my final question would be, why would you not put this on a total university land where it would be like the piece of property that the university has at 800 East and 1800 North, where they have that big field there that's open and empty, and you could put it there with plenty of water coming through there. Because I know irrigation, where you're going to have a lot of water to wash those things down and keep it clean and so forth. And if you don't have that secondary water, you're going to be using culinary water, and that's a lot.
So at least from the New Vision's perspective, the one thing we like about this is we'd actually own this piece of ground. Whereas I'm not 100% sure about the piece of ground that you're talking about. I think that's one that we talked about it. We'd have to lease it, if I'm correct. Is that right? So I don't know.
800 East to 1800 North. You got that big area right there that has that the university owned and crops.
There's a few different.
Space dynamics.
Uh,
There's land here, there's land here,
Yeah.
here, a few different ones.
Yeah, so those are still options for us, I think. Again, the fact that we'd have to lease them from the university, and they have some fairly strict kind of requirements with that. The other thing, honestly, that's pushing me to this particular location that we've talked about is the city center. It's a mile away for the students as the crow flies, so it's close proximity. But it gives them a place to go and do other things. If we bring in and do fundraisers, for example, or adoption events, I could see all of that happening in the city center space. Just maybe a little bit more of an environment for the student, if you will. But we talked about some of these other pieces too as other options.
Final question is, your laboratory animals will be used here. Will they come from your adoption kind of?
Boy, I don't know if we've talked about that. So we are really, as the nonprofit, we're very independent from the university and independent. If the vet school doesn't get funded this year, we're still independent of that. So I don't know if I know enough to answer that question totally.
In terms of animals, is this small animals, mix of small and large? Everybody, you know, what would be the animals, I guess, size and type coming into the facility?
It would mainly be dogs and cats and exotics. We're not, at least in the footprint here, we haven't designed anything for large animal. We felt like a separate location or somewhere different, if we go down that path, would be more appropriate. So it'd just be dogs and cats. And maybe to that too, my two favorite friends in the whole profession own clinics that are just 0.7 miles from here. And this has been why I haven't pushed this particular location. We've been working on it for 2 years. We don't want to hurt their business. We don't. The way I've felt comfortable with it is I've really felt we're going to provide different hours, different types of service, emergency clinic, different hours than most normal clinics are open. And our volume just isn't going to be like a typical clinic. We're going to be teaching. Every appointment's going to take longer. It's going to be less of an impact. We also are anticipating over 1,000 animals coming from and through the intake facility down by the sheriff's office. Not all 1,000 will end up here, but we've got lots of pieces for these students to be a part of. But I'm not oblivious to that, and have spoken with the entities there through the years a little bit. So, because I don't want to come in and compete. That's not our goal.
If I could have a shot here, okay. First of all, congratulations on your vision.
Thank you.
And innovational approach. You indicated you're a 501c3 nonprofit. Have you received your IRS letter of determination?
Yes.
Or is it still in limbo yet?
Nope, we got that 1.5 years ago, just about. So this has been a long time in coming. Yeah, to get to this stage.
Okay. And then a couple of questions to Spencer then. What would be the typical zone that a veterinary clinic or hospital would fall into then? Would it be a typical business zone?
That's a good question. It actually falls into quite a few different zones, most of those being in a commercial type zone. So we do have a veterinary hospital in our general commercial, and I think we have one in our community commercial. Those are the two we have in our city. Those are the two zones they're in. That said, there are more zones that could fall under. I think a city center commercial would fit the city center zone design requirements and would allow this use. It would only allow 4 units per acre for housing. So I don't know that there is actually a zone that is perfectly tailored for the site plan as drawn. We'd probably have to do some tweaking if we wanted to do this exact plan or a similar plan with housing that's separate from the commercial. Most of our mixed use zones have the commercial on the ground floor and housing above. It has to be vertically mixed. We'd have to look and do some tweaking to have a horizontally mixed use zone in order to do this plan. As far as just the veterinary hospital itself, so if we take that isolated, that would fit as is in the city center commercial, general commercial. There's community commercial. There's quite a few different zones. I would probably lean toward the city center commercial just because of the context.
Another question. Our initial indication was that there might be 50 residents or 50 units, I guess, housing units. Was that based on the 7.6 acres? that we heard that, or was that
That
was a number that
Yeah.
you threw out, I think, as a result, but if you take a look at your analysis there, would that equate, does that match up with the 7.6 acres?
I
50
think,
50 units?
Let me run some numbers
Yeah.
real quick.
I think we were basing that on all 10, like getting the piece from Rocky Mountain Power. So it'd probably be less, at least with our calculations. But again, we can accommodate a lot of things if we need.
And does, last question, does a campus setting, does that cause us any concern or issues or?
Yeah,
With
you know,
neighbors?
it really, this
With
one
neighbors?
is,
Pardon me?
With neighbors?
Oh, yes.
and just keeping in mind, I think one of the big things to consider here is this is a discussion to get a general direction. And so as far as housing, I don't think it's completely pinned down. I just ran the numbers quickly to jump back fast. 58 on just without the Rocky Mountain Power, it would be 58.
7.6 acres.
Yeah.
Be 50.
So, yeah, I think I ran it on 8 acres for that. So maybe it would be around 55 or 54, but yeah, right around that 50. But to speak to the campus point, there are definitely pros. Like was mentioned, I mean, with our city center, our big goal is to create an identity for North Logan and to a space for community events, to bring people in, to bring energy, and a campus does that very well, as we've seen by the Innovation Campus. It's brought a lot to the city. And having the university be part of our city center is something that we very much would like. So that's a big plus. Nan mentioned, I think just barely, is just how are ways we can have that and also not cause an impact to neighbors. And that may be the line you have to either decide on and say, no, I think we'd rather have the 65, just small single family. I think that's going to be less of an impact and we'll stick with that. Or if, hey, I think we probably could make something work. Maybe there's a give and take on where things are located, what kind of buffers and screening. Maybe it's landscape, maybe it's trees, maybe it's where the housing's located. Maybe, as mentioned, it's density of housing. Maybe the small single families are all along the perimeter and that provides the buffer. So I think tonight is just getting a initial kind of temperature check of like, hey, I think we might be able to get something to work. Let's explore it a little further. You know, I'm not really comfortable with this. I'd rather stick with just the small single family houses and call it a day. So, but the campus would add a lot to the city center in some ways.
Maybe, do you mind if I make a comment to that too? So realize too, if they're vet students, they've already got a bachelor's degree. And if James and I were associates out at Colorado State, a lot less partying, a lot less, you know, you're there for a reason to get an education. And so I would anticipate it's not the typical frat house kind of atmosphere. It's more community and being part of something together. So to a little bit different student housing, it's not just anyone, it's a select group, kind of an invited group.
One other question, Ann, may I please? And that is, if the university does get a veterinary school, would this be where it would be located?
No, it's more towards the university. Like I say, so we're again independent of the university. So this would be part of their distributive model and then mainly housing. So completely independent of the vet school. Is that, I'm seeing a little confusion. Does that make sense? Am I explaining that correctly? So the university is going to try and have 80 students per class. So 320 students is what they're hoping to have. Those 320 students they're doing their coursework, classwork, especially the first 2 years like they are now, will be at the university. Then as they get into the third and fourth years, they do more of a distributive model and they will come there. Our facility too will be vet techs, pre-vets, not just veterinarians, and high school high school students. So it'll be a very diverse group of people coming through there. Sure.
Come to
You
the
gotta come up here,
microphone,
Ken.
yeah.
Ken White, North Logan. So just to explain a little bit, Cody's mentioned the distributive model. So that is in lieu of us building a huge animal hospital. If you're very familiar with common vet school models, they have a big, it's a hospital, very fancy. And so in our studying, looking to transition from a 2-year to a 4-year vet school, a lot of the newer, more recently created vet schools have felt like this distributive model actually was much more prepares the students to be much more workforce ready. So they are out in practices and they actually spend their 4th year rotating through practices that are functioning practices. And so they see the things that a common clinician will see day to day. And that's how they're taught. So we would be sending these 80 students throughout the state of Utah, spending time in a facility like this. I mean, this is a great example of a really nice opportunity for those students. So I hope that helps answer the question.
Okay, very good. Yeah.
I think it was unfortunate that we had to talk about this the same night as rezoning. That was a bad thing. I think this is something to consider. I think our concern a lot is with the number of housing, but that's something down the road. But in my opinion, I think it's something, and tonight we're just discussing, I think it's something to consider.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd like to say, from a temperature standpoint, I'm intrigued by it. I think this would be some nice diversity. I think it could have a place in the community. I'm certainly open to exploring more.
Great. I didn't know, just really quickly, I don't know if Val Potter, who's here, former mayor, I didn't know if you had anything to say. I wanted to make sure to give you a chance if you did.
Appreciate that. I'm just very supportive of the appreciate your consideration.
So what do we do?
I think unless you're looking for more information, it sounds like there's some interest in working going forward, at least from Eric and Nan. And we can keep taking a look at it and refining the plans so that we get to the point of an actual proposal. But that's kind of what we're looking for. It would be a good time to get a check of, hey, this isn't going to work. And then they could focus their attention on other sites. Sounds like it's there might be a chance to make this happen. There would be need to be some changes that would be made. And I can sit down and we can kind of go over details if this site kind of goes further down the path. Is there anything else you were looking for from the Planning Commission that you'd like to kind of hear as far as temperature check wise?
No, just appreciate your time and consideration. We're putting this somewhere. And I tell you, the city community that this lands, it'll be a feather in your cap. It'll be something that literally across the country, the lawyer that drafted our 501(c)(3), he said, you'd know you're breaking ground. There's nothing like this in the country, and people will be looking at what you do. Because right now, the partnerships between shelter medicine and veterinarians, very poor. Public perception of what we do as a service. There's a lot going on, and you'll notice the second page on our vision, the challenges that we're facing as a profession. We're heading those straight on. We have the second highest suicide rate of any professions in the country. 59% of us won't recommend our own children go into vet medicine. So we are causing, and when I put on the front, we're causing a cultural revolution. We will affect change to a profession that I love. And we're committed to make that happen. So we'd love to do it in North Logan.
Thank you. And thank you for bringing all this information to us. And I think you've kind of got an idea of Dwight and Heron. Do you agree on something to think about?
Dr. James Israelson, is that right?
Yeah.
Your feelings, may I ask that?
I think that it is.
Can you go to the mic, please? I'm sorry, just for Marie's sake. for the recording to do the meeting minutes.
Dr. Ferber didn't ask me to be here, by the way. We've been friends a long time, but so I think that the concept of New Vision is a really good idea. Do I have some trepidation because it's kitty corner to my practice? Of course. But I think that there could be some advantage to North Logan City. I think that Dr. Ferber is who he appears to be, and he's done a really good job in his other practices. One note of caution for me is that one of the challenges in small business is competing against entities that have a lot more money than we do. And so what I would not want to see would be government subsidization of services that I can't afford to offer for that price because I have to run a small business. And I don't know that that's what's being proposed, but I think that should be considered as well. But Dr. Ferber and I have met and discussed New Vision, the idea now for what, year and a half at least. And I do think that there's a place for a facility like this, and maybe North Logan City's that place.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks. All right. I think we can move on. I think you have a feeling of what we think about, and we all have some concerns and some good ideas, and I think we feel like it's something to consider. So
Yeah, with the concerns and issues that
Right.
were brought up, move forward with it.
Yeah.
Correct.
It'll be back before us again.
Yep.
Eventually.
Yes.
So,
Yep.
If it works, yeah.
Yep. Hopefully.
Okay, let's move on to item number 4. Consideration and possible recommendation of a modification to the concept plan for subdivision of approximately 12 acres located at approximately 1800 east, 2800 north. Parcels, the proposed subdivision now includes 10 lots, and the RE1 zone is being proposed to be subdivided using the density determinant method. Spencer.
Yes, so this concept plan previously came to the Planning Commission and City Council, was given a positive recommendation and approved by the City Council. There's been a modification with the developer, just fine tuning it to more closely meet the city requirements, especially regarding the 750-foot maximum dead end requirement there. Originally, this plan included 11 lots. It's down to 10 lots. Now, several lots were consolidated into one larger lot that a single person is interested in purchasing. So there's one fewer lot.
Can you show us, Spencer?
Yes, I'll pull up the plan. Just to show context, it's the end of Foothill Drive here, about 2800 north. And this is, I believe, 1800 east, if I'm correct. Yep. So then I'll flip over to the concept plan. So previously, this cul-de-sac here on the west side was much longer and was over that 750-foot limit. That's been trimmed down to meet that 750-foot limit. And there are 2 flag lots located here. And actually, I do have an updated plan. I thought I'd put it in here, but essentially, the measurements are shown. Developers provided those, showing that it's under that 750. And then the flag lots have real property going down. So this lot here and this lot there would both be flag lots under this proposal, and have the minimum 26 feet there at the cul-de-sac for that limit. So in this method, in the previous concept that was approved, they were going to need to develop in 2 phases. And basically, once a road connected, they could finish the next 3 lots. That's logistically not ideal for the city, just because we don't know when the road will connect. And say those lots get sold, the road doesn't connect, it's 20 years down the line, and somebody's like, oh, I have this lot, I really want to build on it now. And you come back and we say, well, we have to finish this subdivision from 20 years ago, and we have to try and pick up the pieces from wherever it got left off. It's just not a great solution, but it was the only way to ensure that the plan still met our code without providing an exception. This reworking of the plan, it loses a lot, but does make it so this entire subdivision could be built in one phase. And so they wanted to get this concept in front of the Planning Commission for a recommendation to the City Council, just with the amendment, in order to start working on the development plan, just because there were enough changes and flag lots are included now. Wanted to get it back in front of the Planning Commission. So there's the update. on
Thank
this
you.
one.
Comments?
Spencer, tell me again about flag lots.
Yes, so our code allows for flag lots only under certain circumstances. So the first main requirement is the land can't have already been subdivided, which is the case for this parcel. The second requirement is there has to be at least 26 feet in the case of if you have more than one home on that access drive, for an access drive connecting to that road. So I'll zoom in here. He's got that 26 feet. This would be a shared drive for both of these lots. In the development plan, he will need to show where the mailboxes will be. And I'm assuming with the way the post office is requiring these days, that will be a collective mailbox somewhere on the corner. So that won't be an issue. Also, locations where garbage cans will come out, and signage for that corner, just showing that this is a flag lot access lane. That lane will be required to be built to fire access lane standards. 26 feet meets that, and have an approved turnaround at the end. Also, the very back corner of the structure, it'll have to be within reach of the nearest fire hydrant. So there will likely be a note kind of showing where the primary structure can be built, the extents. So they couldn't necessarily tuck it all the way back in the corner. As far as I understand, right now the plan is for an adjacent property owner to purchase that lot number 105 with no plans to build on it currently. Nick could correct me if I'm wrong there. But in the future, there would be a limit as to how far back they could build, just to make sure it's still within reach of a fire hydrant.
And what did you refer to the path back to the flag lots from the cul-de-sac? What did you access?
Yeah, that would be it's in our code. It's just listed as the access drive.
Access drive,
is how it's
okay.
called out.
And
yeah.
it would be paved just like the road
Yep.
and all that?
Paved. It wouldn't have to meet our road standards. It would have to meet fire code standards for the weight it would have to carry. Typically, those are paved asphalt with ribbon curbs on the side to keep the asphalt from crumbling away. But it just has to meet our minimum fire code standards when it's constructed.
A question, is this big lot clear down at the bottom there? Is that just one unit, that whole thing?
Yes, so this 3.2.02 acre lot would just be one home. And I believe there's one person looking for a larger lot that wishes to purchase that, which is why that's a bigger lot. That was split up into several lots in the previous plan.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
And we're okay with water and fire and
Yeah, so along with the original concept plan, those things and those details will need to be noted and shown on future plans. So the water model will need to be submitted with the development plan. All that still holds true. The applicant's still willing to provide that. If the water model comes back and says we've got enough water for this area, then they'll be allowed to continue on and approve. But at the concept plan, we're looking at the right-of-way alignments and the lots, essentially. The water conservation plan, we've already discussed those standards on this and another property with the applicant. He actually was really helpful in suggesting different things that we could do to solve that, and is willing to work with us. I think he's working on getting secondary irrigation water to at least some of these lots, and meeting with the canal company, actively working on that. Ideally, that'll be the case, and they won't have to worry about the water conservation stipulations. But if there's no secondary water, then they'll follow those that we outlined in the code.
And this development would fall under the recommendation that we just made to City Council tonight. Is that correct on our water plan?
Yes.
Modification of the code, I should
Yeah.
say, city code.
Right.
Okay.
Any concerns? Positive recommendation? Okay. Ready to make a motion? Anybody?
Madam Chairman, I move that we put a positive on this one going forward and more information coming in the future.
A second?
Second.
Okay, we have a positive recommendation by Henrod and seconded by Eric to make a positive recommendation to the city council. Do I have to read this whole thing?
No, you
We're
don't have
done.
to read the whole thing. You
Okay,
can- you can go
let's
ahead.
vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, it passes. Great. Okay, any staff business?
Just one, and I'll keep it brief. So in city council last night, we talked over workshop potential dates. Our last meeting, we mentioned the second meeting in February as being a possible good date. Our agendas for both city council and planning commission are looking pretty busy. And after this last meeting in February, next in two weeks, budget discussions start with the city council. And so their schedule gets very busy at that point with different departments' budgets coming in. So basically, after a discussion, it seemed like the consensus was doing maybe 2 times a year for workshops, shooting for 2 times a year, which is what the planning commission preferred, and looking at May and October for those 2 times. So our first workshop wouldn't be until May. So that we were hoping to be able to get one a little sooner. Lindsay expressed she would love to see one sooner so that we could kind of set goals, and maybe for next year we try to get one, squeeze one in January, just to beat some of the applications and things. But for this year, probably May and October. It would be the second meeting in May that we would fall into. So let me know if you have any concerns with those dates, and if you have any items you want to discuss prior to that, especially with it being pushed to a few months out. So.
Okay. Sounds good to me, May. Anything else? Planning commission, business discussion, nothing? We're done? All right. We have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
A second. Eric moved to adjourn and somebody down there seconded it. So all in favor? We're gone. We're done.
Perfect.